Roxanne. Cyril Mayas, morning, sir. Mm. He was giving me a little trouble, Roxanne, but finally decided to behave. Indeed. Pauline Buckmeyer, morning. Rookman Gangadi, morning, Rookman. Thank you for my brooms as always, Roxanne. J. Dimples, Bruce, morning to you. So I have two sets of J. Dimples. Annette Baird, morning. Sarah Richards, morning to you. Eva Smith Spivey, morning. Dwayne Peters, morning, sir. Arlene Lewis, Wazid, morning to you. Kathy Belfont, morning. Oh, okay. I thought so, J. Dimples. Yeah. I think I'm accustomed seeing your name on YouTube, though. Kenneth Gabriel, morning. Shireen Jack, morning to you. Rudolph Barnett, morning. Ruth Fronting, morning, Ruth. Joycelyn Small White, morning, Joycelyn. Christopher Coffey, Claire Irish, morning. Nadia Dixon, Denise Cummings, Patches Bailey, morning to you. Denise Cummings, Judy Bowen, Alison Boyce, morning, guys. Jennifer Dorset, Istra Blake, morning, Istra. Laverne Brown, morning to you. Morning, Joy. Lonnie Rodney, morning to you. John Edwards, Deborah Duranti, morning to all of you guys. Maria Lyons, morning, Maria. Anton Batiste, morning. Let me look to jump into it quick, guys. I had to come off. I need to jump off by 8:30 today because I have another early morning back-to-back board meetings today until 6 o'clock this evening. Yeah. So my day is full. Kurt Shaw, morning to you. Candice Joseph, morning. Morning, Diane. Morning to His Excellency, President of Pleasantville, Nigel O'Connor, and First Lady Mauricia Kagan. Dandy Sandiford, morning. Right, so let me just pull up this thing here. So many things to talk about. As I said, I wanted to touch on Ralph Maraj's article from Sunday's Express, but I will leave that for Sunday coming. As I said, I'm pressed for time this morning, and there are so many other things persons want to touch on. So the fallout over the Prime Minister's announcement of the change in the coat of arms continues, and as is to be expected, the media continues to go to the usual suspects for comment. So I saw in yesterday's Express, they did an interview with Karen Nunes-Teixeira and Mariano Brown, former Minister of Finance under the Patrick Manning administration and former Minister in the Ministry of Finance under the Patrick Manning administration. You would recall that Mariano Brown did in fact serve in that ministry alongside Karen Nunes-Teixeira. So they have side-by-side pictures of the both of them in yesterday's Express with the headline, PM deflecting from HDC, says Karen. And I suppose that she's referencing that housing development project that was earmarked for Santa Rosa, where the contract had been issued and to a Chinese company, and there were certain local contractors who were displeased, and they raised concerns about it. And eventually the government would have backed on that. But leave it up to Karen, jump fence, storm a funeral, Karen, to come up with that. You know, she's the only person I've seen proffer that machination so far. That the Prime Minister just say, oh gosh, no, I need to come up with something to distract from, as if that housing contract is anything. And it's amazing how we major in the minor in this country, right? Mariano Brown, again, is calling for more consultation. And he says, I don't know what type of consultation was done. He said further, that there may be those who would take issue with the move. The different peoples who are present here, as well as the Steelpan may be representative of our change which has taken place, a development which signifies the creativeness of a particular culture by putting one alone and just only replacing the ships without consideration. For example, do we want to replace the coat of arms in full? And do we need the shield and all of that? Right? So it is not lost on us that these persons who are forever in opposition to the government would not see the positive side. My thing is, even if you have issues with it, let's wait. So, well, okay, yes, we have concerns of such and such, but I still think it's a good move because of whatever. It's a bad move. We have issues, we have concerns about this, and that's it. Full stop. Full stop. They have nothing further to say. Nothing on the positive side. Yeah, balance side. Is we only take in one side, and that's it. Right? So I'm not surprised. But the Prime Minister would have, just above that article, it says, Rowley, it won't cost hundreds of millions. Right? Prime Minister Dr. Rowley has said that making changes to the Trinidad and Tobago coat of arms will not cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And the main concern persons have been expressing is that, well, Dr. Rowley says in the next 6 months, and they will. The Prime Minister was specific in what they would use the next 6 months for. Right? He mentioned things like government stationery and so on. The things that could be changed out with least cost in the short term. We would do that. And then later on. But there's all kind of nonsense you're hearing from people who all of a sudden who looking for likes and shares on social media, and those who want to piggyback on those who looking for likes and shares to get likes and shares for themselves. Posting, they're happy to post videos of crazy people. I want to play one for you, but I don't have the time this morning, so I'll probably play that on Sunday. Some crazy people. For instance, I saw International post up one with a lady who decided to address the Prime Minister directly. And her issue is that all the Prime Minister saw was 3 ships, but she's a single mother with an autistic child. And not enough is being done for families with autistic children. And she went to the UTC and she wanted, with her autistic child, and she wanted certain special privileges because of the child and whatnot for them to send somebody outside to the car to deal with her transaction, so she wouldn't have to come out of the car with the child and whatnot. And they told her, come and they will deal with her. She went upstairs and the child started to misbehave and whatnot, run away, run off, ran into the escalator, got cut over his eye blood. And she vexed with the Prime Minister because of that. And she's a single parent and they're struggling already. And she's holding up her passport and her ID card and her driver's license. And she wants to know if she now has to find the money to go and change this next week or within the next 6 months. None of that has been said. But again, when we love propaganda and chopid talk, right? And it's sounding good, as if the Prime Minister, as he says here, the government is not without sense or reason. You think these things didn't cross the Prime Minister's mind as well? And therefore, all who espouse and see certain people who I thought had sense, doing videos and talking about, well, if you change the coat of arms, then it's illegal to have a different coat of arms on official documents and so on. No. The government could simply make the legislative amendment to state that all existing documents with the old coat of arms would remain valid until the expiration date, as the case may be. So they could run the full course, because the government is aware that there are people while last week who would have gone to renew their passport, or who would have gone to renew their ID card or their driver's permit, and therefore it would be an inconvenience, not just from an expense perspective, but time and so on, to take time off of work to go and do these things. So the Prime Minister is not going to come and say, well, you all need to go and change this by such and such time. But we're supposed to be a nation of people with sense. But apparently, no. It's more, common sense has been replaced by propaganda. I saw another young lady, one of the most misguided souls I've seen, because I've seen quite a few videos of her on TikTok. And I don't know if it is she's trying to build a TikTok following, again, so they could get likes and shares, because I think there's some monetary element to that. But she looks to be probably in her early to mid-20s. One of the most misguided souls I have ever seen. And wants to comment on everything has to do with politics and so on. And so she did a video, again, and International posted that as well. But it was one of the cleaner posts that she has done, because she has a very filthy mouth. Very, very filthy mouth for such a young lady, right? A mouth that you would associate with a seasoned gutter rat. But normally I said a cuss words and ridiculous. And these are things that Mr. Ishmael loves to post, right? And she's talking about, again, the same issue with the coat of arms change. They wants to say that that is not a priority because the middle class gone and the price of food is high. And what's this? That the pitch lake has been leased out for 100 years. I'm saying, where do these people get these things from? Do these people sit down and think, is that possible? They lease out the pitch lake for 100 years to the Chinese. Is that possible? The only thing, I'm sure if you probably go down to Lake Asphalt, the only thing you might find of Chinese origin might be the clothing on the backs of the workers down there. I don't know where they get this stupidness from. No, if you do any amount of research with respect to the government of Trinidad and Tobago engaging in any kind of interaction with the Chinese with respect to the pitch lake, you would see is a transaction that took place under the People's Partnership. But again, we are a population that loves propaganda and chop it talk. And when it is that you don't like the government because you're suffering from a chronic case of didn't get what you expected, you're willing to, all you're looking for is propaganda and will talk to shit. And it amazes me that these people feel emboldened to come and do lives and do short videos and so on and post it up, highlighting your ignorance. As I always say, when I sit in front of this camera, or when I used what is on the radio station and I sat before that microphone, I always did my research on anything that I spoke about because I am mindful of the fact that I don't know who is listening to me. And therefore, I need to make sure that whatever I present is correct. Because I don't want people to be listening to me and I'm saying things with authority that is wrong, that can be easily disproved, that can be fact-checked in an instant. And people say, oh, who is this club? What chopness he talking about? Because that is what runs through my mind when I see some of these people posting these videos, right? And I'm saying, oh, really? But it's because they believe that is the truth. And they will not go and do any research to make sure, because it's thousands of people see these things. And then woe be unto the people as well who share it, because it tells me, oh, just as dotish, sharing these things because you believe what is being said. Yeah, that good, but that's something good. And that is how propaganda is shared. And people need to understand how potent social media is and has become. Because for most people, a lot of people, a significant amount of people, that's where they get all their information. Social media, right? And they look for things that appeals to them, something good to them based on their positions. So if you do like the PNM, even if something proper comes up, you won't want to hear that. Because you're suffering from cognitive dissonance. You've held on to a belief for so long that when you're getting facts telling you, you see where you believe there, that thing you're talking about the pitch lake lease for 100 years, and you've been spreading that gospel all over the place and telling this one, that one, and now you're seeing something that telling you that is not true. I don't want to hear that, no? I don't want to have to deal with the fact that I hog up this thing so long and I hate in the government because of this. And now somebody's coming to tell me that that is not true. That is just propaganda. I need to hate the government because your life not going the way that you want it to go because of choices that you made. So when I saw that video that Injan Ishmael posted up with this lady who is extremely angry, quoting scripture and so on, and the prime minister this, that, and the other, and the amount of money that is going to cost the citizens and single mothers can't afford and whatnot. Why are you a single mother? Where the child father? Or where the children's fathers? Where are they? When Dr. Rowley said, choose your men wisely, and let's say all the worst things about it, that he's so uncouth and whatnot, and the like. But there was sense in that advice. So you vexed Dr. Rowley because your child father probably leave you. Why is he not contributing to the child's upbringing? If things didn't work out with you all, fine, it happens. Yeah, people fall in love and they fall out of love. All the time it happens on a daily basis. But you need to ensure that if it is that the two of you all produce a child, that he or children is involved in the child's life. If he has a job. It's only if he's deceased or incarcerated, then we could say, all right, fine. Maybe you could lean on the state a little bit for help. But still, the state has other things that you could do beside applying for a grant and applying for public assistance, applying for a food card. But the things that the state has, the opportunities that the state has to give these people a hand up, So they walk down the road, so they enter the room and they see two doors. Hand up, hand out. The line for handouts, long outside. The line for hand up, short. You know why? Because hand up they find is too much work. I just want the money every month, just send it to my bank account. I don't have to do nothing. On the 15th of the month or the 28th of the month or whatever it is, I just want to pull up my bank account online and I want to see money in it. Don't tell me nothing about I have to go and sit down in a classroom for 2 weeks to learn something. Don't tell me that in order to get $20,000 to start a business, that I'm required to go and sit down in a classroom to actually learn how to run a business. I don't want to hear that. Just give me the 20,000. I just want the money. But I have a little small business already and I know what I'm doing. Right? So I don't need to go and sit down in a class to learn something extra that could show me how I could improve my business or expand it. Don't tell me that. I prefer the handout though. You know, the populist policies that the UNC loves to promote. We will create 55,000 jobs. You get a job. I mean, I really want a job, you know. But if I get my job, I want it to be a morning work, right? So by 11 o'clock, I don't work and I could go home and lie down in my bed. I could go home, pull out my phone and pull up Netflix. Netflix that I'm watching based on because I tap it into my neighbor Wi-Fi. Because I can't afford Wi-Fi on my own, or too damn cheap for my own Wi-Fi. So you know what? Yeah. I'm going to sit down and watch a little movie on Netflix or some streaming site or something. And rest myself. Then I cook something and I eat. And if I have kids and I have to go and pick them up after school or something, or make sure I have food for them when they come home, right, and we good. Until the next morning I get up and I go and I cut some grass and then I come back home and I relax for the rest of the day. But between 11 and whenever time your kids come home, you can't find something else to do to earn extra income. But then you're complaining about the cost of living so high and the price of food so high and this government, as if the government could go and tell the grocery owners to reduce their prices. We live in a free market economy. The government cannot tell a business owner what profit or what markup to put on their products or what price to sell their goods and services at. The government cannot do that unless it is that you all want us to be living in a communist state or a socialist state. But this government is going on with that communism. Don't even know the blasted meaning of the word. We're talking about communists and all of that. But advocating communist policies. So the government must mind all that. You make child, the government must pay for education from nursery to tertiary. So early childhood care, they're paying for that. Primary school, they pay for that too. They must give you a uniform grant. You want a book grant, every grant under the sun that you could get. And then secondary school, same thing. You must provide all of those things plus transportation as well. And then tertiary, yeah, we want that too. So you must give us gate, but gate paying for tuition. We also want to get money for the other things, to buy the books and all of these different things. You must provide breakfast and lunch for the children when they go to school, and then give us a grant or a food card so we could go to the grocery and buy food to give them dinner. So basically, you must just make the child, and then they become a ward of the state living under your roof. So the government must provide for them every single thing that they need. So I ask the question, what are you supposed to provide? What is your role as a parent? What are you supposed to provide? I can't even say somehow like giving your children guidance, because based on the crime situation in the country, we know even that not happening. So you want the government to fund every blasted expense that is from the time they're born until they reach 18. Plenty of you like to talk that talk. I just waiting for them to reach 18 and then I wash my hands, I do my part. What part? The government did their part. So you making the child become a ward of the state until they reach 18. And even to give them some guidance, to set them along the right path, you can't even do that. I can't afford price of food. The price of food is cost of living so high. And this so high. And the state of healthcare in the country is so bad and people can't afford to do this and do that. But the other day, Vibes Cartel was free. And everybody doing live and doing videos on TikTok and stuff. Yeah, when the World Boss come by concert, I had to go to that. I had to find out money, but I had to start saving from now for that. I ain't missing that. That's all they're talking about. People doing skits and things, what they're going and sell to be able to purchase a ticket to see the World Boss. The World Boss come on, but yeah, bye. Right? You don't care what it costs. You're going and see the World Boss. You're going and stand up to sway from side to side and chant and sing a few lines from some of his songs. Right? For a few hours. That money, all always talking about, oh, the government, there are better things we could spend the money on. Eh? What sense are making? So much other things in the country, more things to give priority to that we should be spending that money on. But when it is you take your money that you don't have and complaining, you're going to pawn the little jewelry that you have so you can buy a ticket to go and see the world boss. And then after that, you have food to put on your table. You don't know your children going to school, they can't get them passage, so they could only go to school 2 out of 5 days for the week. But you don't think, there are better things I could do with that money, boy. I have other priorities in my life. You know, to apply that to the government, but to your own personal circumstance, no, that makes sense to you. Because the government is spending money. Right? Plenty of them who talking that stupid talk. But they have an issue. All of a sudden, that's part of our history and our history. They know history now. And all these people calling for consultation, and we need to consult the population. And this is not a decision that the Prime Minister could make on his own. And I made the point a couple of days ago. We just had a consultation exercise on constitutional reform. Constitutional reform, right? And all that it entails. The government provided a forum for members of the public to come and say what they feel and what they think the government should do and how the constitution should be reformed because it's long overdue. Instead of this little chirrup thing every now and then, we're getting a little change in the constitution with respect to certain laws. Make it all-encompassing and wide-ranging changes, which of course would require the support of the opposition, because we're talking super majorities here, 2/3 and 3/5 majorities. Anytime you have to make changes to the constitution that can impact on people's fundamental rights, you require the support of the opposition, a majority of the parliament. So unless the government has that absolute majority, as was in the case in 86, 33-3, or like under the People's Partnership, where they had 29 seats versus 12, right? They had a big maxi with 3 extra seats. You know, the extra seats that is add-on. I know for 5 years, the PNM only went from 20-something seats to, all the PNM have a small maxi. What did they do with that 29-seat majority? They gave you a runoff. When they had their constitutional reform consultations, what we get from that runoff? Yeah, let's try and get rid of the small parties because they are nuisances. So if in the first round of voting, your party is unable to get at least 25% of the vote, then they get knocked out and then we move to the second round. So it's only people who get 25% and more could participate in the second round. That's what we got. They amputated your index finger. And they didn't care. Citizens were camping outside the parliament day and night, 24/7, doing relay. At no point in time during that whole week did you not have people in front of the parliament sleeping on the pavement. Ordinary citizens, vagrants. These are upstanding citizens who were protesting this thing. The parliament was at the waterfront at the time. And no matter, they didn't care about the population. Where were the calls for consultation? But all these men and women have let us know who calling we want consultation and more consultation. I want to ask Karen, did she go to any of the consultations on constitutional reform? Did you go to make your voice heard? I wonder if Mariano went, or Dr. Tilak Singh, or Vishnu Raghunath, or any of them, Vanas James and all of them who have issues. I know the Prime Minister moving like a dictator. Timothy Hamel-Smith and all who have issues that the Prime Minister didn't consult. You all went to any of the constitution reform meetings? No. You weren't interested in that. You don't have time for that. So even the very citizens who now complaining and talking about the Prime Minister, did you all go to those consultations? The few people that went and the few contributions that the government would have gotten online, person who made certain submissions and whatnot, that would have informed the final report. If the Prime Minister come and say, well, we're going through the report here and we decided we want to implement certain things that we can implement. The same people come and talk about consultation. But how did that report come about? All over the country. I was so disappointed every time I watch the news and they speak about these meetings. The turnout was poor. 17 people showed up. 25 people showed up. There was the meetings started late because of the small turnout. So when they catering in some cases as much as 200 people, they're lucky if they get 20 persons. A clear demonstration that the population was not interested. So if they were not interested in letting their voices be heard, as it pertains to overall constitutional reform. You feel they come into any consultation just to talk about the coat of arms? They're not going to. They don't even care to go and vote. 70% of the eligible electorate who could have voted in last year's local government election chose not to, because they don't care. As far as they're not important. So if they're not putting prominence on an election, which is perhaps one of the greatest ways or the greatest attributes of a democracy, if they don't care to participate in that, do you really feel anybody going and sit down for hours or 2 hours to sit down and listen to people talk about the coat of arms? A waste of money. But they advocating that the government should do that. All of a sudden, they discover the word referendum. Well, the fully dance. Where was the referendum for runoff? Where was the referendum for runoff? When the party that you support, led by Kamla Persad-Bissessar, decided to give away prime property, prime real estate in Chagaramas for peppercorn rates, where was the referendum? Where was it? Despite the fact that thousands of citizens walked from Chagaramas to the waterfront in the burning sun, and then stopped at the waterfront to protest and chant and with the placards and so on. And you had somebody who just pulled the curtain or pulled the blinds. Let me see how much Indian it have in the crowd. Yeah, well, East Indian not supporting that. So there's a PNM rally. All them people outside, there's only PNM. They didn't care. They couldn't care less. Where were the calls for consultations then when lands were being given away willy-nilly? 4 acres for $1 a year. 4 acres, prime property for $1 a year. Where were the consultations when the decision was taken to bulldoze the crops of the Guava Road farmers? Where was the consultation and the call for consultation from all these people? All these bleeding hearts, the fully dons. Where were you? Well, there was not corner and clapping and applauding your leader and your party. That's what you all were doing. But tell me, all you know about consultation. Where that come from? They said, yeah, even the person who was the lead, the chairman of the committee, their version of the Constitutional Reform Committee, Merle Hodge. So I don't know where the hell they get this thing I run off from. That not in our report. That was never raised. Nobody discussed that. Where that come from? But they were still forging ahead. And the only reason why it wasn't implemented was because Parliament, the parliamentary term came to an end, and that bill lapsed. That piece of legislation lapsed. Otherwise, we would have had runoff today. What was the purpose of that? The only other thing they did was to change the methodology by which aldermen are allocated in local government. And they did that why? So that it made it easier for the UNC to be able to get aldermen in PNM control corporations where they would not normally have any representation. It was always about them. Selfish, had nothing to do with the people. Nothing to do with the people. In the interest of time, because I say I need to leave early today. So let me address so many other things to talk about. But anyway, I wanted to play something quickly. Let me see if I could pull this up here. Just get it here. Get this. Let's now focus. Let me see if I get this. No, Sunday we will deal with it. I saw that the TASA Association decided to put in their 2 pence. And they wrote a letter, again, which I don't have time to discuss today. But there was one aspect of that letter that threw me for 6. Their argument that the steel pan wasn't invented in Trinidad. The steel pan is not an indigenous instrument because we import the steel drum, right? So because the material, the raw material for creating the steel pan is not manufactured here, and because we import that, we import the barrels, that means that the steel pan wasn't invented here. And to add, it goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. The most asinine argument I have ever heard. To say, well, even before they created the steel pan itself, if you knock the barrel, you get a sound, right? So we didn't create that sound. That sound was always there. But they want to tell you that the tassa is more of an indigenous instrument than the Steelpan, because when they make the tassa drums, they only use local material. So they use the skin. They buy the skin from the goat farmers and so on, and the other material and stuff. They get it here. So therefore, that means that the tassa is indigenous to Trinidad, because you're using local materials. And because we import the barrel, that means that the Steelpan wasn't invented here. I don't have time to discuss the idiocy of that. Somebody actually sat down and thought of that and put pen to paper or finger to keyboard and send that out. And proud to use that as a defense. That requires a whole show by itself. That needs 2 hours alone to discuss or more. That the ridiculous depths to which these people will go just to fight down this thing. I cannot believe that somebody actually came up with that. Anyway, I can't even talk that right now. I cannot. Right? But let me just play this, please. For all the people who want to tell you that the economy collapsed. Let's see if I get this in. Give me 1 second. Oh boy. Some people are willing to give new meaning to the term fully done. I need to talk to, I don't know, is Wendell Eversley still involved with what do you call it, Titasa or something so? Maybe Wendell could share some insight with us on that. Because, I mean, that argument, to try to diminish our national musical instrument like that, in that way, with such a ridiculous argument, So you got it, anyway, all right. Yes, Pam. Yes, Veronica. I thought the same thing. They give new meaning to the term fully dance. So don't tell Professor Copeland that I think Professor Copeland invented a different version of the pan too. But Professor, because the materials that you used to invent this instrument came from abroad, right? You didn't invent that. All right? It was invented abroad because the materials are not indigenous. It's not local. Okay. Right. I'm gonna play this. Give me 1 sec. Yes.
Energy Minister Stuart Young has met with the outgoing Atlantic LNG Chief Executive Officer run into 2024, including the construction projects.
It is what
Ron Adams and his announced successor, Jean-André Celestin. The Energy Ministry says the meeting, which took place on Monday, centered around major accomplishments of Atlantic LNG for the period 2021 to 2024, including the execution of complex turnarounds with the T2 turnaround in 2023 and the T4 turnaround in 2024. The ministry says the company is also now at the implementation stage of a new asset management system and fabric integrity campaign geared towards accelerating the company's asset integrity upgrade, with Adams speaking on the implementation of the company's 5-year strategic plan, which he says is proceeding.
That's not this story. Get this story.
The projected pace of the St. George's Development Group is looking forward to several promising construction projects amid significant progress with regard to the luxury apartments being developed in Charflair. At the launch of the development on Saturday, Lakeith II was pleased the company was able to turn around the once stalled housing project.
We acquired this abandoned property in 2020 and we started construction in 2022. We're hoping to finish by January 2025, so another 6 months away. The cost of the project is over 100 million TT dollars.
Model homes were unveiled at launch as the housing project is seeking interest from potential homeowners. Lakeith II says the company is also seeing promise with several other projects.
We are now about to acquire the BP complex in Mero, which we are now going to convert into the Sea Breeze Beach Resort, which is a 9-acre development. We have the Cornerstone Suites, which is an apartment building planned for Stone Street in Port of Spain. We have a branded hotel we're bringing to the Maribel area. And then we have another 80 apartments and 10 townhouses we're going to start at our Mandalay Gardens development in Arima.
You can find out more about these developments in tomorrow's Business Guardian. And now,
Yeah, all of those projects that are underway. So the first project that he was speaking about, if you're heading north on the Churchill, not Churchill, but La Highway, right? You look up on the hills, you will see these towers that are there. I think the original owners who were trying to develop that ran into some financial difficulty and whatnot, and the project was abandoned. And then the finance house took them to court, and everything said that thing. Well, anyway, $100 million they invested to complete those apartments, right? Townhouses and so on. 100 million, you heard him say that. And then he spoke about another 3 or 4 projects, which includes a branded hotel coming to Maribel. Branded hotel, which means probably some international brand that they bring in. As opposed to what is taking place in Tobago, where they're trying to fight down the Marriott Hotel. I am certain you will not find opposition to this hotel in Trinidad, because we need to continue to improve our room stock, right? And Trinidadians, for the most part, well, let me not say that. The Tobagonians who supporting the TPP that have no sense. But in an economy that is collapsing, who invests $100 million in housing in an economy that has collapsed? Who is likely to purchase these units? Obviously, they cater into the middle class, which we are told no longer exists. But Republic Bank, just a few weeks ago, had an event at Hilton where they would have unveiled, and it dealt specifically with mortgages and so on, and they would have invited a number of real estate companies to participate so that they could speak with persons who are interested in home ownership and persons who are looking to buy properties, and the bank looking to finance. And what was reported is that the amount of people that came out to that event, cars were parked up all along the Lady Young Road, miles along the Lady Young Road, because there was no parking and no more parking left inside in the Hilton compound. Now, why would these people go to this thing if they couldn't afford to get a mortgage? They're interested, and based on what the bank said, the response was significant, and they probably need to have another one. But all these projects that this gentleman, Mr. Lakeith, I think is his name, announced, why would he invest that money in a collapsed economy? In a collapsed economy, people not making money to purchase housing. So why the hell would you invest that money to have all these housing units just sitting there? And for years, there has been advocacy for the private sector to get into housing development in this country. Before, it was mainly HCL, Home Construction Limited, under the CL Financial Group, that would have engaged in that. So we have developments like Sunrise Park in Trin City, you have the crossings in Santa Rosa, Millennium Lakes, also in Trin City, and so on. But now you have, clearly these people would have done their research, because nobody goes to get financing. And even if you get in financing from the bank, you have to convince them that you will be able to sell these units to generate the income to pay back the loan. And the banks, the finance houses are clearly convinced that these people, these developments that they are engaging in, will generate funds in a collapsed economy. I wish that the media would go and ask all those who cry and collapse the economy, collapse and really destroy the economy, would go and ask these people, so what are your thoughts on these developments announced by this gentleman? Do you think he's a madman to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in a collapsed economy to just put up buildings and just look at it? Don't you think he would have done his research and he's satisfied that he can get these units sold? Don't you think he would have consulted with all of the real estate companies and they would tell him, yes, there is demand for these? Persons are calling us and asking us, do you have any units in this area or that area? within a particular price range. I got qualified. I went to the TTMF or TTMB. I went to my bankers. I went to Republic, or I went to Scotia or FCB and told me I qualify for a mortgage of this amount and I'm looking for property in this price bracket. Do you have any of those? Right? And they would have indicated that to these developers. We have a lot of people calling us and they're interested in purchasing properties in these areas for this amount of money. They have qualified for these mortgages and we have a shortfall of these units. In a collapsed economy, where the money coming from? The thief in it? There are printers in their home and they're printing money in a collapsed economy. But the fully dons have that talking point on repeat. Yeah? The record stick, as we would say. Every time you go on social media, you're reading that. The economy collapse, crime out of control, food prices high. It's the same talking point, all of them. And blaming the government for high food prices. They see what's going on in the US. They're talking about gas prices and so on. In the United States, they have all the oil and all the gas. #1 exporter of oil and gas. But yet still, their citizens don't get, unlike us here, their citizens don't get subsidies on gas. You pay the price. So whatever the price of oil is, and whatever that translates to at the pump is what you pay. I don't see people placarding on the various news stations talking about, well, we are the citizens of the United States of America and it's we money, and therefore we're supposed to get subsidies. Even healthcare is not free. Universal healthcare is something that is more akin to what they would call third world countries. Right? Third world countries. But they have the money. They could print money. They have several sources of income, the federal government in the US, and yet still, citizens in the US balling. Yet still, you have US citizens who are living in tents at the side of the road, such that the Florida governor had to pass laws now banning people or making it a criminal offense for people to be living on the streets. They have all the money. We don't have the money here, but the government's still trying to see, well, how can we help the citizens? They complain about the state of the healthcare in the country. Right? It's so terrible. The public health system is terrible, and that's the government's fault. And a conditioning unit not working, blame the minister. You have a pile up of garbage, blame the minister. You have a shortage of vomit bags, blame the minister. And I ask the question, in whose best interest is it for the public health sector to be in a mess? Right? Or to be inefficient? Whose best interest is it? Certainly not the government. Because if it is, people are struggling and it's poor health, the services at the health sector is poor, the government going to get blamed. And that could impact on their re-election chances. So definitely, it can't be that the government is willfully, as some would like to imply, maintaining that state of affairs, even though I disagree. Because Jack Warner, as we saw, wrote an article the other day talking about describing the Arima Hospital as the Ministry of Health's best kept secret. And the quality service that he received. Of course, the fully done will say, well, it's because it's Jack Warner, they gave him that treatment. But the state-of-the-art facilities, all the equipment working and so on, I drew to your attention the fact that I think Colvin Wood's mother had suffered a stroke, and prior to her death, she was at the Arima Hospital. She wasn't in St. Clair Medical. She wasn't in West Shore. She was in a public hospital. Contrary to what they like to say, and a politician and them and their family, them just fly out. Mr. Wood could tell you differently. Right? But I ask the question, when you look at the people who hold a lot of the managerial positions in the public health sector, a lot of them are sometimes doctors, heads of departments, and so on, who have private practices and who are consultants and who work for the private hospitals. And if the public health sector is in a mess, where do you think people are going to go? Not to the private health sector to put money directly into the pockets of some of these doctors who hold senior positions in the public healthcare system? I'm just asking the question. I give the example of my younger sister who passed 2 years ago, right, from diabetes complications. In 2015, November, December of 2015, when she developed an ailment where she wasn't able to keep anything down. So she eating, drinking, even water. If she drank it, she would vomit it back. Went to 3 different private institutions along the East-West corridor. Spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars trying to find what the problem was. And they couldn't diagnose. Right? 3 of them. The last one that she was in the West, one of them and the 2 main ones in the West. I'll tell her, well, here what? They do all kind of blood testing, they can't find what the problem is. They say, well, here's what. We could put a camera in your stomach to try and see if we could make a diagnosis based on that. But we cannot guarantee that would tell us what the problem is, right? But it's going to cost you $34,000 just to do that procedure with no guarantees. So my older sister and I tell her, hey, well, that's not making sense. Because you went to the other place, you stayed there for just over a week, we spent how much? Thousands of dollars. And they couldn't give a diagnosis. All they kept giving her was gravel and so on to keep her stomach down and then. They discharged you, felt a little better, and 2-3 days later, the problem came back. We went to the other one, same thing. So we said that's not making any sense because if they can't give you any guarantees, they do that procedure, which might just take a few minutes, and then you pay $34,000, which is just a doctor fee. And then what? It's still in the same position. And we don't know what the final outcome will be. And if this is going to impact your ability to earn income for the rest of your life and any money that you have, you need to save it. So she started to feel better. She was discharged. And then, of course, about a few days later, the problem came back. So I called my older sister and said, listen, problem come back again. What to do? Right? I don't think it makes sense taking her back to this private institution because the same thing they did last time is what they're going to do and charge a set of money for basically nothing, just to give her gravel and yeah. So she said, hey, well, let's just take her to Port in general. So we did. The same doctor in the private institution who wanted to charge her $34,000 to do that procedure. And then if they had discovered what the problem was, they had to spend another set of money to treat the problem, right? Same doctor is a consultant in Port General Hospital, right? And because of his specialty, he was assigned to her. He was able to perform the procedure in Port General Hospital. So they put the camera inside her. They were able to see what the issue was, that she was suffering. Well, the first time I heard about that, something called gastroparesis, where her stomach muscles were paralyzed because of the diabetes, right? And that's why her stomach wasn't performing the way that it was supposed to. And they needed to do some major surgery and stuff with her intestines and whatnot to fix the problem. So she got the what she would have paid $34,000 for in that entity, in that facility, she got it done free in Port General. The surgery that she would have had to pay another ton of money for in that private institution, she got it done free in Port General. Now, this doctor could have easily said to her, here's what. You could get this done free in the public health sector, but they don't give you that option. They don't give you that option. Why? Because that's how they make their money. When they are consultants in the hospitals and so on, people complaining about that. They tell me I have to do a surgery, but they give me a date at 2026. I mean 2024. And you're wondering how that making sense. Most of the time, the people who have to do these surgeries, these specialist surgeries, are the same consultants. And when it is, remember, they make the bulk of their money in the private sector. And they are only allowed to do a certain amount of surgeries for the year, right? Because you don't want burnout. You don't want them doing more than they could. And then while they're operating on you, they're falling asleep on themselves, and then that could mean the difference between life and death. So if it is that they have a certain amount of surgeries they could do for the year, they will obviously focus on the ones that pay them more in the private sector than the public. So if they say, well, okay, I will only do this quota of surgeries in the public sector because there's the money they're paying me, and crap will smoke your pipe if you need to get one of them surgeries from these few consultants. But it is in their best interest to try and create a scenario or situation in the public sector that will frustrate the public so that they can now go to the private sector and pay the money. And when people are desperate, they will do anything, even if they have to go and take a loan to live. But we don't focus on that. We don't study them thing. Blame Rowley, blame Dale Singh because of what happened. Right? So they're supposed to know everything that's wrong in the public sector. Every little thing that's wrong. So the people who charge with the responsibility for ordering more vomit bags when they don't do it, or they don't do it on time, or they deliberately frustrate the process, yeah, blame Dale Singh for that. Blame Dale Singh for that. Yeah? So everything that's wrong. But when the good things happening in the public health sector, we don't hear about it. Only the bad things. How long they had to sit down on a wheelchair in the waiting room. But when they get through quick, you see them running on social media to talk about that. 7:25. We'll come back to that on another day. Let me deal with this. A story that the media probably not going to. So two things before I get to that. One thing. Yesterday at Napa, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service had an event. I think it's called Youth in Business or something like that, where young persons between the ages of 18 to 35 were invited to come. They were registering about 100 new businesses there on spot, free of charge. And it was also to educate and inform the young people about this program that the government has, where they're trying to create at least 1,000 entrepreneurs by 2025. I think I heard Foster come and say they want to increase that to about 1,500. So the government allocated $20 million to be distributed to 1,000 persons in tranches of $20,000 each to start a business or to enhance your business if you already have one, a small business. We keep saying that more needs to be done by the government to be able to promote that. The turnout yesterday in Napa was significant because, like, the word spread, the young people here, and they came. So all of these young persons now who came there yesterday and who have business ideas and who are business minded and want to get into their own business had the opportunity yesterday to do that. You all see the media focused on that? Is that a front page story today? I haven't seen the front pages, but probably most likely probably wouldn't be. Right? These things that they should be highlighted. You're feeling Sean Ishmael will share that on his Facebook page. He's going through and he's looking for things to share. And he will see that and bypass the street because that is good news that promotes the government and shows that contrary to what they talk about with the government, and the government look about the poor, and the government look, and only the rich must get richer, and Rowley say the rich must get richer and they ain't doing nothing for poor people and all of that. That would belie things, sharing things like that would belie that narrative. So we're not about that life. We're not sharing that. Right? They wouldn't share. When we posted the video, one of the many videos from yesterday's event at Napa for the young people who are interested in becoming business owners. So while Kamala talking about we will create 55,000 jobs, it's probably looking to create 55,000 business owners. Right? Chalk and cheese. While she is offering you certificate of comfort and land for the landless, which is basically government permission to squat, Keith Rowley is offering your children deeds of lease. Right? Plots of land and a deed to go with it that they could take to the bank and get a loan to develop that land. You can't take no certificate of comfort to the bank. They're not interested in that. You don't have title. And land for the landless, you can't go to the bank with that either. So when they come in and talking about the populist strategies, and Keith Rowley is saying, look, we want to take this thing a step further. So we're giving you money to start your business, but also you're getting a deed of lease to the homestead program. You're interested in agriculture, but right now, the homestead oversubscribed, we have the shade house program. So you don't have access to land? Come, we're giving you access to land so that you could do your thing right there. We're giving you access. 4 shade houses were commissioned last week and 16 more under construction on what was formerly the mega farms that was created by the Manning administration, which the People Partnership shut down because they said the state should not be competing with the private sector. That ain't making sense. So you shut it down, but you give one man 100 acres to plant onions to export. And but you end up with a restaurant and a facility to host Carnival Fest and band launch. Yeah? Arable farmlands. He only took back 50 acres out of that 100. And today, he's putting infrastructure in it for the young people who they say the government are doing nothing for. Putting facilities there. Securing the future of Trinidad and Tobago's agriculture sector by making agriculture sexy for the young people. So it's not just about going and digging dirt in the hot sun and watering plants. You have shade houses now. And you have infrastructure that you could utilize without having to dig dirt. And you get the same outcome. That is what Keith Rowley and the PNM is doing. You feel the media will go down to Shagaramas and do a feature story on the shade house to talk to some of the participants in that program? No, we rather go by Grand Bazaar and look for the woman who outside with her children begging. Yeah, let's go and focus on that. And let's spend 5 minutes of airtime on that. That is better than going down to the shade house, than going down to Chatham, where 179 young persons between the ages of 18 to 35 got their 2-acre plots recently. Rather than go down to Chatham and talk to some of these people and show the country what is happening in agriculture and how the young people are now invested in it. No, let me go and look for the unemployed because he worked for somebody and with the rain that came and he has income and he has the kids to send to school and they don't have money to buy books and shoes and so on. That is what we need to go and show. And I said, let's go to Napa. Let's cover this event. Let's talk to some of the people who attend and ask them what motivated them to come and what they expect to come out of that. No, we're not interested in that. We're not interested in that. Let's go and look for the families of murder victims so that they could cry and complain on how the government are doing nothing to fight crime. That's what we're interested in. Let me get this here. We'll come back to that too. See, I just had my checklist of things to talk about. Not enough time, but as I said, I pressed for time this morning, unfortunately. Let me get this here. Where is it? Where is it? Media release. Ministry of Sport. Sport TT secures $30 million judgment related to the live sport program. Just when you all thought live sport was dead. You see, this is the kind of resuscitation or the kind of resurrection that we want. Not the kind that Kamala Persad-Bissessar engages in, where she goes to the political cemetery and looks for the worst of the worst to resurrect. Right? Political necromancy. People who should remain in the political cemetery, she just going and looking for the headstone of the worst to resurrect. And this is the resurrection we want. Port of Spain, August 21st, 2024. The Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago, an agency of the Ministry of Sports and Community Development, has successfully obtained a judgment against eBeam Interact Limited in the amount of $30 million plus interest and costs. This ruling represents an important step in Sport TT's efforts to recover monies paid under a previous contract related to the live sport program. The Ministry and Sport TT remained committed to upholding the prudent management of public funds and will continue to pursue all appropriate legal avenues to protect the interests of the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You think you will find this notice shared on the Facebook page of Incha and Ishmael? Certainly so. You think you would find this on Gary Griffith's Facebook page? You think you will find this on Kamala Persad-Bissessar's Facebook page? You think Anna Roberts is going to do a doubles and coffee this morning to talk about this and to state that it is a good development? You think David Lee or Kevin Ramnarayan would post this on their Facebook page? Jayanti Lakshmi or any of them would post that? $30 million. Your government went after. The same Sport TT that executed the contract is the same Sport TT under the instructions of this administration that has gotten an award of $30 million. Unfortunate. Well, we will see how it plays out. But the man to whom the money was paid, one Adolphus Daniel, is no longer in the land of the living. So we will see if this will be executed on his estate, whether or not there is going to be an appeal or so on. But this is good news. You think the media are going to call Vishnu Raghunath and ask him for comment? You think they're going to call Winford James and ask him for comment? Karen University what she thinks of this development? Where a man was paid $34 million for nothing? Let me get to that. This is the last one I will touch on today before see if I could take a few calls. Daily Express, August 9, 2014. How the live sport contract went from 12 million to 34 million. I want you all to listen carefully. I'll take my time and read, because the man read too fast. On September 4, 2012, Adolphus Daniel, a director of eBeam Interact, submitted a proposal to the Ministry of Sport to teach math and English throughout Trinidad as part of the live sport program. So this $400 million program, live sport as we know it, that went from 6 million to 400 million, the main purpose was to teach math and English, right? As opposed to what the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service is doing now. You'll get it. The cost of that 2-year program was $7.5 million for the first year and $4.5 million for the second year, a total of $12 million. 2 months later, on November 4th, 2012, Daniel again submitted the proposal to the ministry. So this is the same proposal, right? This time, the cost of the 2-year program was revised to $11 million for the first year and $11 million for the second year, for a total of $22 million. Same proposal, absolutely no change, nothing different. First time he submit, 12 million. Second time he submit, 2 months later, price balloon, inflation, interest, $22 million. There were no material changes to the two proposals titled Proposal for Mathematics and English Language Courses for participants at 38 live sports centers in Trinidad and Tobago, of which the Express has a copy, except the cost. So the only thing changed in the proposal was the cost. 2 months later, on December 6, 2012, a contract was signed by Daniel, who registered whose registered office is at Light Pole 52 John Street, Montrose, and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago. So in 4 months, in the space of 4 months, the 4th of September, 36, 37, space of 3 months. 3 months. The total of the contract was 34 million. So we went from 12 to 22 to 34 over a 3-month period. September the 4th to December the 6th. 12 to 34. Fully done, not talking about that. And they wouldn't talk about that. You know what they'll tell you? That is a distraction. That's a distraction. The government now, you hear they posting that story, the media posting that story as a distraction from the coat of arms. That's what they go come and tell you. Not the fact that the government that they supported, the party that they support, gave away $34 million of taxpayers' money. And we didn't even get a stick of chalk, not a pen, pencil, or a paper clip. But they will come and tell you that is a distraction. Not looking at the significance of it, that we get back 30 or stand to get back $30 million. They will downplay that, just like the $1 billion that we stand to get from the lawsuit against Ish Galbaran Singh and Steve Ferguson and others. Right? Remember, they downplay that. They didn't really talk about that. There are billions missing. But the billions to get back that we almost lost based on what we were told, that between 2010 to 2015, absolutely nothing was done on the part of the government of Trinidad and Tobago to advance that case. And had this administration not come in 2015, there's a strong likelihood that that matter would have been dismissed because the plaintiff wasn't interested in pursuing the matter. The attorneys for the case who were representing the government of Trinidad and Tobago would have told Faris Al-Rawi in 2015 when he became Attorney General that they have been trying to reach out to the AG for the last 5 years, 2010 to 2015, to get instructions on how to proceed, and all of their requests went unanswered. Efforts to reach the AG and the government was futile on how to proceed in this matter. But this administration pursued it, and today, the people of Trinidad and Tobago stand to get at least $1 billion in restitution from Mr. Ferguson and others. But we continue. The total on the contract was 34 million, and the scope of services in the contract was copied straight from Daniel's proposal. So he presented a proposal, and they came up with no negotiation. Then say, well, okay, Mr. Daniel, come and sit down and discuss this thing here. Let us discuss your proposal and see what we could include, what we could change, and so on. None of that took place. He submitted a proposal, and they said, yeah, send that to legal, and just tell them drop our contract, wherever it is, wherever he wants, just give it to him in the contract and call that judge. The same, but the people who today are the de facto defenders of proper procurement, they wanted this government, the procurement legislation, we passed it and we introduced it in 2013 because we wanted to fix procurement. You introduced it, but you didn't pass it. It wasn't assented to. Mama guiding, right? They knew what they were doing. This government, they didn't want to pass the legislation because they want to get their friends, family, and financiers contracts and so on. These defenders, but look at the kind of thing that they were doing. Right? Look at what they were doing. I continue. But there was no justification for the costs, although a justification for sole selection dated November 22 was attached to the contract. Well, you know what sole selection means? It had no tender. We just pick somebody. We pick a contractor. So this wasn't open up to invite other educational institutions to bid, and so that we could get the best price for what we require. No. Somebody said, we go in with E-beam, that is it. And they provide justification. Now, normally, sole select is usually used in cases that of emergency. So, a sinkhole developing in the middle of a main road, right? Main thoroughfare, that could cause significant problems. All right, we need sole select because this problem needs to be fixed. We don't have 2 and 3 weeks and a whole month and so forth to invite tenders and so on. This is an emergency that is causing significant inconvenience. It has to be fixed immediately. Sole select. So just find a contractor who could do the work and bring him. Those instances, those circumstances, that is allowed. But this is something that they had plenty time. They could have put out the tender inviting, they could have evaluated the tenders and so on, but they decided to go sole select. I'm waiting to hear what that bald-headed lout has to say on this. If the media will attempt to contact him for comment, and whether we will hear attempts to contact the former Minister of Sport under whom this transaction took place were futile. Make sure you go on his Facebook page. Douglas Politics. Go on that Facebook page. And anything that he posts up, go in the comments and ask him about that. We want to hear. We don't want to hear nothing about Rowley and Rowley do this and Rowley do that. We don't want to hear about no red couch and no two parrot and two dog. Miss us with that BS. We want to hear about live sport. So go in the comments. Go on Facebook, pull up Douglas Politics, right? And you will see the videos. I'm sure he come in with something this morning to distract from that. Go in the comments and just ask him, when we hearing from you about live sport, this judgment, talk about that. Let him know that is what you all want to hear about. I continue. It should be noted that the budget for literacy and numeracy is exclusively to meet the cost of teachers, quality assurance, and the monitoring component. There is no direct cost to eBeam Interact Limited for supplying these service elements. In addition, the program costs have been budgeted for technology, equipment, and installation. Here are all the things you supposedly pay for that we didn't get. Given the sensitive nature of this program, the Ministry of Sport supports the implementation approach of utilizing the services of sole select supplier. The justification for sole select stated. Given the sensitive nature. What was so sensitive about it? I just asking. Daniel's first 12 million proposal had stated the equipment required for his teaching engagement would be one eBeam Engage system, one laptop, one high-resolution multimedia projector, and a digital student response system, which is commonly called a voting system. Further, each facilitator would be given a 16 gigabyte USB flash drive. In addition, he required a high-definition digital camcorder and appropriate accessories. He also said a biometric time and attendance system would be installed at each center. In addition, for that $12 million cost, here are all the things they were getting for $12 million. Sport TT would have been the recipient of a high-resolution multimedia projector for all 38 centers, high-resolution multimedia projectors for all 38 centers, laptop computers for all 38 centers, digital camcorders for all 38 centers, automated students response system for each class group at all 38 centers, 2,300 student response clickers, one for each participant, web-enabled biometric time and attendance system for all 38 centers. So when the people who are supposed to come and attend classes come, they would be able to scan their fingers, the case may be, to show that they came to class, right? Integrated management information system, web portal development and configuration, web portal implementation, ongoing maintenance and support costs of training all users, development and production of training manuals at the cost of other training resources, the cost of installation of all hardware, licensing fees, shipping and handling, internal transportation of equipment and ongoing travel of personnel management fees, production of monthly reports, miscellaneous costs. They were getting all of that for 12 million. The article goes on to say at 22 million, those services remain the same. So they were getting nothing additional, but the price went up by $10 million. In the space of about a month, the price went up by 10 million, and they were getting nothing extra from what they were getting for the 12 million. But after a 34 million contract was signed, no work was done, and Sport TT company does not have any of the equipment which it should have expended sums to cover. No equipment, not one piece. According to eBeam, which is distributed by US-based Luidia Inc., Daniel's Educational Community Limited is its sole Trinidad distributor. They express understand that each eBeam device costs under 1,000 US. An invoice submitted to the Ministry of Sport by eBeam Interact showed a total cost of all equipment for the live sports centers at US $125,590 or TT $797,496.50. Less than 800,000 for all them things I just called out for you all there that they were going to provide. 800,000 was going to cover that. So that's 800 out of 34 million. So we had 33,200,000 that we're still trying to find out what that 33,200,000 was supposed to provide. The Express tried to contact Daniel in an attempt to understand how the cost had escalated and whether he had acquired the equipment for the program, and if so, whether he left the equipment he had obtained with Sport TT. On the first attempt, the Express was told, "Please do not contact me again." Thank you. The Express again tried to contact Daniel last Saturday and was told, "I have asked you not to call me again. Could you please respect that?" Before the call was ended. Creed had the contract. eBeam Interact was registered on August 9th, 2007. Here it is, sir. By attorney Alison Eustace Luther Roberts of Roberts and Company. You know that name, Roberts? Roberts and Company? Law firm? Okay. The directors of the company are Daniel and Gloria Curtin. On March 8, 2013, the Sport TT company had a board meeting in the Giselle Salandi room of its offices at Henry Street, Port of Spain. Among the issues discussed was the contract to eBeam. The board minutes stated the board ratified the decision made on the 6th of December 2012 to award the contract for the numeracy and literacy components of the live sport program to eBeam Interact Limited in the sum of 34 million, based on the fact, among other things, that the recommendation was made by the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Sport, Ashwin Creed, to the CEO of Sport TT, then John Mollentine. So look at who made the recommendation. Huh? The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Sport, Ashwin Creed. It was on the basis of that recommendation, that Sport TT decided to award the contract to Mr. Daniel. Board approval will be required for any additional payment in excess of the 34 million to eBeam Interact Limited for the numeracy and literacy component of the live sport program. For its 34 million, eBeam was paid in 2 installments of 17 million. The first installment, which presented 50% of the fee, was paid on June 14, 2013, and the second payment was done on February 11, 2014. At a news conference last Friday, Creed's lawyer, Peter Taylor, said his client was being made a scapegoat. He said the permanent secretary cannot direct the board. He can advise. The special purpose company is a legal entity on itself, Taylor said in defense of Creed. Last Thursday, Cabinet fired the Sport TT board, which was chaired by Sebastian Paddington and included Reynolds Bala, Norris Blanc, Nisa Das, Anil Gopi Singh, Sabrina Kayam, Matthew Kwamina, Anand Ramnanan Singh, Kent Samlal, Milson Sibu, and Hanarain Singh. Mollentine resigned from the company 2 months ago. Contacted last Saturday, listen to this part. Contacted last Saturday on whether he was aware of a friendship between his father and Daniel, the former sport minister, Anil Roberts, explained his father was a lawyer with over 50 years practice and was surprised he had registered Daniel's company. What? Is my father registered Daniel's company? Serious? I didn't know that. But daddy never tell me that. So you mean all this thing going on with him and daddy never tell me that? Okay. Interesting. Thanks to the heads up. I didn't know. What a coincidence. He said no recommendation ever came from him to the Sport TT board to approve Daniel's contract. No recommendation came from him, but it came from his permanent secretary, Ashwin Creed. Well, because Ashwin Creed has the authority to recommend $34 million spent on his own. He's not the minister, right? He doesn't have to report to cabinet. So he made this recommendation without consulting the minister, right? So Anil Roberts had no involvement whatsoever. Everything that took place with live sport was between Ashwin Creed, the permanent secretary, his permanent secretary, and the board of Sport TT. He was never told anything. Ashwin never tell him his government money, government had to approve that. But Ashwin just take it upon himself. 34 million, no problem. I will make that recommendation. I'm not going to discuss this with the minister at all. The minister knows nothing about anything that's happening with live sport. Other than when we have to do a launch, we will type up a speech and give it to him and he will go and read it. I continue. Major deliberate obstacles. On September 16, 2013, Daniel sent a document to Mollentine requesting an update on why the program was not yet started. Daniel insisted the centers were not ready with the format for teaching being structured. He noted eBeam had acquired 38 eBeam interactive whiteboard systems, 38 laptop computers, and 43 printers, which it was under no obligation to do. I don't understand how you could be under no obligation to do that when the contract said you would provide all of these things as part of the contract, that these things would be paid for as part of the 34 million, and therefore it belongs to the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago. So how you could say you're not obligated to do these things when your contract says you are? But we continue. 38 high-resolution multimedia projectors, 76 USB drives of 16 gigabytes, and a voting system. So he say he acquire all of the material, right? So you get 34 million. These things should be in the possession of your employer, the ministry, or Sport TT, because they paid you for that. In the document, Daniel stated, suddenly and regrettably, eBeam has encountered major deliberate obstacles and open interference as it attempts to execute its contractual obligations related to the technology component. All of a sudden, so just now he said he's not obligated. Now he's saying he's attempted to carry out his contractual obligations. And he's supposed to be teaching math and English. In one brazen case, an executive order was issued to eBeam to cease the essential manual activity. Executive order. Right. To cease the essential manual activity of acquiring a true record of the daily attendance of all staff and participants at all live sports centers. So in other words, he get an executive order. Stop taking role. Stop taking role. Right? Stop trying to take role of who come, who show up, and who didn't show up. Stop taking role of the staff, if the staff come, if they didn't come. If the teachers come, if the lecturers come, if they didn't come. Stop doing that. Right? You don't want any records to show that people getting paid and they're not coming, or that the students collecting the stipend and they're not showing up. Stop it. This is what he's saying here. Further, the instruction was reinforced by a well-orchestrated act of violent intimidation, which included the confiscation and destruction of government equipment in the process. What government equipment? The one that you weren't obligated to provide. These treacherous acts ensured that eBeam stopped the recording of all other relevant data that could expose financial and other irregularities within the live sport program. So you get rough up. Somebody send the boys, tell them I deal with you. Let them know what time it is. You see all this thing you want to be taking role and recording what time, who come and who ain't come and how many days. Deal with it. Let them know. We ain't playing that. Audits and the eBeam contract. The eBeam contract was highlighted in the Ministry of Finance's Central Audit Committee July 2014 audit report into live sport, which has now been forwarded to the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Integrity Commission, the Commissioner of Police, and the Head of the Public Service. However, in November 2013, the Ministry of Finance's Audit Committee had compiled an interim report of the live sport program and had voiced concerns about Daniel. That report stated, Central Audit noted that eBeam played an unusual role in the program. For example, loans were issued to the Ministry of Sport. Loans were issued to the Ministry of Sport. This private company issuing loans to the Ministry of Sport. How does work? Really? A private citizen giving loans to the Ministry of Sport. Staff also involved in the program indicated that Mr. Daniel of eBeam personally interacted with other contractors such as the coordinators, coaches, caterers. Interesting, caterers. You all remember how much money was spent on catering under live sport? $58 million. $58 million was spent on catering. And here we are being told that Mr. Daniel was interacting with the caterers. He calling shots. And he tried to run the program as he saw fit. He tried to run the program as he saw fit. For example, he paid coaches an additional salary from his personal funds and was subsequently reimbursed by the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs. Central Audit was not provided with the approval for the repayment to eBeam. The minister didn't know that the Ministry of Sport was taking loans from Mr. Daniel. The Minister of Sport wasn't aware, right? And he's the... Anyway, we're going again. The recommendation by the Central Audit then was that the current contract be cancelled or renegotiated so that Sport TT will have better control of the monies expended toward the component of the program. And it was in November 11, 2013 that Sport TT got legal advice from its head of legal, Lisa Solomon, to pay Daniel his outstanding $17 million. Daniel received his second payment on February 11, 2014. Let me just read this quickly here. I said, I'm working with time this month. Express article dated July 26, 2014. Headline, it was annual. 34 million for no work in live sport. Hawaii, Sport Minister brought Daniel to the Ministry of Finance. Finance Minister Larry Hawaii says it was Sports Minister Anil Roberts who brought Adolphus Daniel, the educator, who was paid $34 million from the live sport program for no work, to his ministry. Mr. Daniel was brought by Minister Roberts, and this is Mr. Hawaii speaking here, and officers of the Ministry of Sport to meet with the Ministry of Finance to demonstrate how the program would work. After the demonstration, nothing further was heard about this initiative as far as I am aware, said Hawaii, in an email response to questions from the Express. The minister was responding to questions on why Daniel was solely selected, no procurement, no tender for the project, and whether Daniel's 34 million contract was sent to cabinet for approval given the quantum of it. This particular contract was approved by Sport TT, not by the ministry. Really? State enterprises can and do enter into contracts without cabinet's approval. And as far as I can recall, cabinet would not have been aware of this contract at the time that it was approved. The Ministry of Sport proceeded with it through the sport company. The Ministry of Sport, this is Hawaii speaking here, proceeded with it through the sport company rather than through the Ministry of Sport itself. I wonder why that was done. I wonder why, because if it went through the ministry itself, the permanent secretary has an approval limit of $1 million. So anything above 1 million has to go to cabinet for cabinet approval, right? And we didn't want cabinet scrutiny because it might have had 1 or 2 persons in cabinet who would have asked some question. 34 million for what? Nah, boy, you need to wheel and come again. We need a little more information. You know, the 1 or 2 persons in the cabinet who might have had a little ounce of integrity. Not much. Should I continue? The audit commissioned by Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesa into live sport had revealed that Daniel's company, eBeam Interact, was paid 24 million, but no work was ever executed. The audit noted it is obvious that Sport TT was a party to this contract, mainly because the contract was above the authorized limit of the permanent secretary. You see how I could come up with innovative ways to get around accountability? Yeah? But the minister said he ain't know nothing about it. 34 million. Me? That wasn't me. I don't know nothing about it. It is evident that the mind and management of this contract has always been and continues to be the Ministry of Sport. The contract was drafted by the Ministry of Sport's legal department, and all the conditions necessary to satisfy the readiness of the centers for the start of the numeracy and learning component were always the responsibility of the Ministry of Sport. Who was in charge of the Ministry of Sport then? But the man said, me, I wash my hands of it. My heart is pure and my hands are clean. Blame creed. Me and nothing to do with that. But here it is. Larry Hawaii telling us is that it wasn't Ashwin Creed that brought Adolphus Daniel to him. It's Anil that bring it. That's what he said. Hawaii said that. He never contradicted Hawaii to say Hawaii lied. But in the previous article I read, he was so surprised to learn that his father had registered Adolphus Daniel's company. What? What? Remember on Spock, that used to be his line? Really? I didn't know my father knew Adolphus, but what is this? In an interview with the Sunday Express, Daniel had said he would not return the 34 million he earned from the program because he did not default on his part of the contractual arrangement. Rather, it was the sport company that defaulted on its end of the arrangement because it did not provide the necessary infrastructure, which was part of its contract for him to execute services. Daniel said that there was never a complaint by the sport company that work he was contracted to do was never implemented. In a telephone interview yesterday, Daniel pointed out that the audit had echoed his sentiments that the centers were not in a state of readiness. There's a lot more to this article, but I don't have the time. Plenty more. But the substance that I wanted to bring out was the fact that Hawaii said it was Anil Roberts who brought Adolphus Daniel to him to explain how the program. The key points this morning, Anil Roberts brought Daniel to the Ministry of Sport. The contract was awarded using sole select, no tender process. They didn't invite bids from other persons who provide the same services. This contract was executed within the space of 3 months, during which time the budget or the cost of the program went from 12 million 34 million. And we see where the cost of all the equipment that they needed to carry out the work was 800 TT. We had a difference of 33 million, 200,000 TT. We don't know what that money was for and where it was supposed to go. Right? Let me take this call. Yes, let me get this. Give me 1 second. Let me just get this here. Right.
Thank you. Hello?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yes. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
May I proceed?
Proceed.
May I proceed, Mr. Roman?
Yes, sir. You may. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. Just one or 2 points I would like to make this morning. One, on the issue of the panting and the TASA, the intervention of the TASA Association of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
To the best of my knowledge, the 1990 coup, Johnny Walker, Wendell Eversley, is the president of the TASA Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I would like Wendell Eversley to inform this country about his position on the position of the TASA Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Is it that the impetus came from him? Does it have his imprimatur? Is he the one promoting this thing about TASA? Wendell Eversley has to account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Forget all his exuberance, if irrationality about walking from Arima to Port of Spain every July the 27th. Come here and knuckle down and tell us what is your position on the TASA Association in relation to the quota ban. You tell us. You can't stay quiet. You have to tell us your position today. As early as today, anytime today. Secondly, I wonder if people are aware of the fact that are going far back,
Yes.
almost 40 years, back in the 80s, to my recollection, a very close relative of the Douglas politics man, a very close relative. And for those who know, well, they would know. But I think the public needs an education. Public education is the order of the day, today and now. I wonder if people know that a very close relative of the Douglas politics man was suspended by the High Court of Trinidad and Tobago from practicing law. I wonder if he knows that. And I remember very distinctly, he had taken a case from a woman over it was a land issue, some land dispute, and he was given the brief. And in the words of the High Court, and it was in the newspaper then, the individual was suspended for quote, converting the lady's money to his own personal use. Converting her money to his own personal use. And that person was suspended from practicing law for some time. Douglas politics, you have a duty today. Come and tell us if you know who this person is. Come and tell us if you know this person is. Mr. Roman, read my lips. Read my lips. Those of us who are old enough are very much aware of what it was, who was involved, and how close that person is to Douglas politics. And in addition to that, let me say this. It is very instructive that after firing Douglas politics from her cabinet over what we were told was questionable dealings in relation to the light sport program, she fired him. She stood up in the parliament. It's as if I'm seeing her now. She stood up in the parliament and gave us chapter and verse. She fired him. Questionable dealings. Only for us in Trinidad and Tobago to discover that maybe a year or two after that, at a meeting in Diego Martin, where Douglas politics was invited to the microphone to talk. We were told by his leader that he will return to Parliament via the Senate. So after firing him for questionable dealings with the Life Support program, she brings him back to stink up the place in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is testimony to be Cesar. And I wonder, you know, with all the nastiness and the drunkenness carnival day and the slurring and the disgraceful and stink behavior, the foul mouth of this man and his well-known irrationality and inebriated discourses, are drunk most of the time. I wonder if that happens to be part of the synergy between Douglas politics and the person who fired him in the first place, but who eventually turned around and bring him back into the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, the Senate. And finally, as I close, this thing about coat of arms, the coat of arms, this is an extension of the nastiness of Indo-Trinidad towards Dr. Rowley. It is not so much the thing about the pan, you know. It's about the source of the comment. It is an extension of how they feel about Dr. Rowley. You see, these people have never been able to associate themselves with the innate, inborn culture of Trinidad and Tobago. And who came first and who brought what? And the origination of Steelpan on the estates and the drums, the estates of you know, during the slavery days.
Yes.
They cannot relate to that and have never been able to relate to it. So that when you read people like Linda Capizio and Rudy Chato Paul and Kendall Caron and all the rest of them, you see, they have always associated the Steelpan with black people. It's a black people thing. It's a people thing. That is how they view it. So that people must understand that they have never seen Carnival and Steelpan and those things as reflective of our national culture. They cannot relate to it. They have never been able to relate to it. They do not see it as, in other words, the thing is that their focus is very narrow and backward and atavistic and insular. That is how they are. That is how they view it. Just as how they view cricket. I'm not drifting too much from your main topic. It's just as how they view cricket. That is why they always use a numbers game. We want to know how many Indians on the West Indies team. And you know what? Whoever West Indies is playing, you know, they want the Indians on the West Indies team to succeed, batting or bowling. But West Indies must lose.
Yes.
The Indian must excel. But West Indies, the team, must lose because the majority of players, in their estimation, are black. And when they see the players on the field, they see P&M and blackness and race. So they want Godatish Moti to excel. They want Chanda Paul or his son to excel. But West Indies must lose the test match. Whether they're playing against a white team or Asian team, it doesn't matter. The Indians on the team, the handful of them who make the team, must excel. They must excel, but West Indies must lose. And that is how they view Pan. You see, they never viewed Pan from a broad national. In other words, they don't see it as a Trinidad and Tobago thing. They see it as a black people business. And they have never, notwithstanding the fact that you had the Jid Samaru and the Bobby Mohammed and the Ainsworth Mohammed, and all of them, and Jid Samaru's son who took over Supernovas on Surrey Village in Lotinodia. They don't look at that. They see Steelpan as black people business. And just when you see, they are hypocrites of the highest order. When Satmaraj used to say, while all your children beat in Pan, our children beat in books, what he wouldn't tell you, but it used to be in the newspapers, and that is how I know what I'm telling you now. You know quietly there used to be competitions in the Hindu schools called Bal Vikas,
Yes.
BAAL, and then capital VIKAAS, Bal Vikas. That's a cultural program
Yes.
involving all Hindu schools in this country. Do you know Hindu boys and girls used to be beaten, fam? But people out here don't know that. So it is pure race and racial prejudice on the part of these people. And finally, I firmly believe that this drunkenness of Anil Roberts means absolutely nothing to his leader. And I strongly believe that there's some kind of synergy between his drunkenness, his slurring, his nastiness, and her own personal propensities. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, sir. Indeed. Say good morning to Vandana Mohit, who is noted on social media when during the Cricket World Cup, when the Indians won, she put out a post. Today I'm a very proud Indian. She said that, not me. She says so. Anyway. Give me 1 second, go. Let me just get this here. Turn this off. So, 1 second. Right. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Dominic.
Morning.
How are you?
I am good.
You know amazing about those in yellow? We have a woman called Kamla, the mad woman called Kamla.
Yes.
Is going to entice racial attention. Real black man over there. Peeling dirty head children. You have the name of your fake masters. What was that? A compliment? The compliment in direct way? When the ad campaigns of 2015 and 2020 had African people eating grass and going to garbage bins, Miss Senile of TNT, what the hell was that, Kamla? Who said if it lost the elections, blood will flow like water? And sing back to say this. What she said enticing racial tension is what she has planned. She's hoping those words will cause a war between the races. And if it happened, she must be court-martialed, found guilty, and hung by her neck till she's dead. What I say, Dominic, I very well say, I stand by what I say. So the Cathedral, they have no problem. When our ancestors came on a ship against their will, they were raped, sodomized, and brutalized. So keeping ships, right? What they're saying is that we don't count, right? How could Wade Mark, Julian John Rothschild, sit there and hear what is coming against them too? Julian, you can buy body horse here, it is still horse here. You're wearing horse toilet paper on your head. You're not Indian, you will not be Indian. With Mark, you are plum because your wife is Indian. You're token curry. The Panther drum is a stone instrument from Persia. It is not ours. Because the goat is a wholesale goat. I don't care, it's a goat, it's a goat, it's a goat. It is not ours. Why are you so intent on hating black people, Kamla? Why are you so insecure Your heart is blacker than pitch, and your hands not clean. Because if your hands were clean, you wouldn't say what you say. Because you took slavery, the horrors of slavery, to score points. If Mandela was alive still, he would feel quite shame on you. Slavery wasn't easy, and it was not just physical change, Dominic, it was emotional change. Because a child was felt up at her breast. Can't be a wet nurse. Men were sodomized to break your spirit. So keep it rich, right? That caused people the most brutal pain. Kamla, you're Hitler. She's trained as Hitler and Jim Jones. If anybody vote for her, or like Bacchanal, because it was the fetal Rajak, I call it, that brought them here with a coat of arms, they wanted gone. Kamla, Canva next year, keep your old, drunk, senile, at the backside, sorry, in a village. So, gone, bye-bye.
Thank you. Jenny.
Hi, morning, Dominic.
Morning.
Morning to all who's locked on and listening. Messiah just answer a question. Was it Al Roberts' family speaking about? Al Roberts, the lawyer who was the bar? I'm just asking. And you asked about Miss Eversley. Miss Eversley is the vice president of the TASA Association of Trinidad and Tobago. The president is some gentleman with DR in front of his name. And we understand that that DR is also questionable. But Ms. Eversley would have stated on national radio his wanting the Tassa drum to be considered the second musical instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. So he would have made his position clear, being a part of that association, which I find is unfortunate because, as I was saying this morning, the Tassa is a photocopy. It's not original, because the Tassa came from Persia to India. And when the indentured laborers came here, they would have used the same material that made the Tassa and just replicated the Tassa. They didn't take those same material and make something new. So that is why it is not an original. So the conversation about the steel pan, is the steel drum had come in, so it was a material imported. Of course, it was a material imported. However, that material was made to create something that never existed before. And that is why it is an original. It's just like when those big fashion houses take fabric that they didn't make, and they make clothes with it and create a design that becomes a signature piece, an original, and they put a stamp or name on it. It is theirs. Nobody will say, well, they get the clothes from India or China. They look at the design because something was created. So the steel drum came with oil in it because that's what it was used for. However, African people in this society took that because they heard a song in it, but it wasn't a song that they could recognize. And they fashioned out of that and created the only musical invention of the 20th century because it was nowhere else in the world. So that's why it is the national instrument. So you can't take a photocopy and want to make it national. And you take original and you put it next to the original. It will make sense. So that to me is my argument there. With regards to Alan Roberts and this thing, my conversation is this. Is he culpable in this? Because when it comes to contracts within the ministry, that is in the domain of the minister, who will talk to the permanent secretary. The legal department will draw up the contract, and then the minister has to go to cabinet to get money to pay for that period of time that the contract is for. So that is not a public officer situation. So Alan Robert can't hide behind his public officers. When it comes to contract, he, the minister, whoever minister it is, that is in their purview. So if now the sports city has won back money from this contract that was given to a man to provide a service, and the judgment is saying the service was not provided, and it was due to Anna Roberts that this man got the contract, well then I don't see how Anna Roberts could weave and buff out of this. So it will be interesting to see when he do eat doubles and coffee, if he have rum next to it also. Because this one will be a bitter pill that he will want to swallow. He cannot distance himself from what has happened there. No matter what kind of old talk. And I concur with you. Anytime he have his doubles and coffee, let all of us go on it and ask him the question. Let him block us. That's quite okay. And when he blocks us, you'll get more people to go and ask questions. Because he cannot buff and weave and dodge this. And lastly, with regards to removing those 3 ships, has anybody considered the feelings of the first peoples of this country? Or that those 3 ships would have affected their ancestors? That their ancestors were almost genocide, murder, rape, torture. Little children, they're using the first people's children, Columbus and them, and using the sword, cutting off the neck to see how sharp the sword is. Using them to pierce them with the sword to see if it could go right through them. Have anybody considered that group of people? Or is it because they're so small that some people continue to disrespect them? Because while the 2 major groups, some in them groups, continue to talk about the cost, it will have to replace the ship. What about the cost in mental health? What about the cost in feeling that you belong and that you recognize? So anytime we disrespect about talking about the price, how much it will cost the country to remove the 3 ship, and it had this happening, and it had food price, all that, you're disrespecting the first people because they were here before all of us came here, and their ancestors suffered. That is why the group is so small. So have some damn respect, all those who have a problem with 3 ship being removed. It is worth every penny. It is the same when Dr. Raleigh went and bought the Casabon painting, because you understand that the Trinidadian who painted that, they had the word to say. But all over the world, people are treasuring the artists and putting it in museum. When he would have spent money to fix the Magnificent Seven, they had a damn problem. And now tourists and them coming right here to watch them Magnificent Seven. When they left the Red House to rot, Dr. Raleigh came and he refurbished it. And we have what we can walk now, watch and be proud. They had a problem with that. When they leave the president house, there was rubbish, truckloads of rubbish in it, and didn't fix it. And Dr. Raleigh said they had a problem. But today, you could go all day and watch it and feel proud. I'm not talking about sanitizing history, but we don't talk about history in books and go museum. So removing the 3 ship, we always know when the 3 ship is going a damn book and read it and see it there. But I want to ask Kamala Pasalbi's sister, are some of them sanitizing their history of the indentureship from the children? Or they only telling them about 1845? Kamala, go and tell your children and the children, because they need to know. Don't sanitize the history. What happened in India, why they had to come here? Tell them that you all were Dalits, cleaning the streets, cleaning front of the street, that highly uneducated, illiterate, outside the caste system, a very cruel caste system. I am not rejoicing that, but we're talking history and sanitizing. It seems to me that all they sanitize all the history. And finally, to Dr. Tilak Singh, I wouldn't even want you to teach my dog to stand on 2 legs. Because he should know, in Germany, any symbol of the swastika and anything to do with Adolf Hitler, it has become a criminal act. They cut rid of everything. But then everybody still know the history. How do we? And they was reading books. So that was some people from knowing. But right in Germany, a bigger country than we own, they outlawed and banned anything to do with Hitler, anything to do with swastika. And you telling me, because we're removing 3 ships that to the first people present rape, murder, genocide, and disease by sanitizing. They're not sanitizing, and everybody still know about swastika, and everybody still know about Hitler. So now I tell you, as a lecturer in UE, I know why you teach a dog to stand on 2 legs, because he should be more academic in the thinking than that. And it make me want to say as I leave, Dr. Tilakson, is your doctorate real? You'll have a blessed morning. I go.
Thank you, Jen. We'll probably take two more quick ones. Good to see. Hello, good morning.
Hey, Dominic.
Morning, sir.
Yeah, morning, Dominic.
Morning.
Yeah, good contribution, man. It's a Jenny. Well, Dominic, I cannot add much to what you say, because, well, I know the government has been working previously to get back our money. There's cases in court.
Yes.
And it will take time for a decision to come down. So the government is not just, the citizens should know that the government is not just sleeping. As Dr. Rowley said, the wheel of justice, it turns fast, it turns slow.
Yes.
But we are hearing that 30 million, we get $1 billion from OS, and Tiago, we get $1 billion. So they are working, and it showed the corruption that happened under the UNC from 2010 to 2015 with those highways, Curab interchange, and Point Forte, and all those different things. So I want to see what the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, who they will vote for. Somebody who gets any back money, spending the money into, as Jenny said, the Magnificent Seven, the Red House, all those historical buildings when tourists come into our country that they could go and see, and Dr. Rowley making our country proud. But Dominic, before I go, could have tassa. When you tune a pan and you take your piano or your flute and you go A, and you knock on your pan until you get that song A on your pan, or B flat on your piano, and you tune your pan and you get that B flat on pan. Could you get that on a tassa drum? Don't talk of Dominic. Don't talk. Okay.
Thank you. So, folks, I did say I have to jump off early, right? But I'm on Facebook here, and I'm looking at the Express posted the story with the 30 million victory, and I'm looking at the comments of the supporters, the fully dons, and just as to be expected, you know, when their party gets caught with their hand in the cookie jar, you know what they say? Hear them. PNM 65 years, the PNM Tiffin. Who could surpass that? No comment about this, right? They can't defend it. What is the other one saying about PNM invented corruption from since 1956 up till today? They will never address the fact. And this is the point we're making now. When they are caught in wrongdoing, comments, they want to go back to 5 decades and tell you about O'Halloran and Privat. And this is all you see in here. All you see here, this one. Very good. Now get back the 26,000 US that Gopi Schoon's ministry paid a ghost company for and never received any product for it. But she wouldn't ask for the 300 and something thousand TT dollars that the People's Partnership paid for 70 guns for the Predia last and he scored in 2014, and not one gun has arrived in Trinidad and Tobago. Not one. But she went back 26,000 US. But last I checked, 26,000 US is less than 300 and something thousand TT, right? But we ain't gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about all the money anyway. We're gonna talk about that on Sunday. Right? The Sunday we have a little time. So as I said, I have to jump up early today because I have back-to-back board meetings. Let me just take this last call quickly and then I'll have to wrap up. So yes, so let me just get it. Hello, good morning. Hello?
Hey, Dominic, good morning.
Yes, sir, morning.
Hey, Dominic, I still can't understand why some people would be against the plan, but I realize there's a lot of things. It have a lot of politics in it. As I think it's Jenny or somebody rightfully said, it is because it's Dr. Rowley and the PNM brought it forward. So now it becomes a topic because they know the significance of that. But I would like to put across that still nobody can be that. Trinidad and Tobago created the licensed instrument in the 20th century. No other body, country in the superpowers, I keep repeating this, none of the superpowers who could have put men on the moon and who could build a bomb of mass destruction could do that. They have a lot of bright people who could invent a lot of things, but nobody can invent an instrument again. I mean, there are so many arguments on talking about the oil drum and it is, well, the pianos and violins and those things is not a trick. Now, would they make it from a trick? Yes. And so it's a nonsensical thing. You just take the fact that you could have taken the oil drum and make tones off it, that now you have these synthesizers that these musicians use. The tone is on those things now, so you could get pan tone and people using it. As a matter of fact, the rest of the world, the Japanese people, I saw a gentleman in the United States, and the man is doing wonders with the Steelpan. All over the world, Sweden, all those places, people love the song of the Steelpan. I mean, I had nothing to do with the tassa, for the tassa is not originally from Trinidad and Tobago. And they could try jump high, jump low, it is not. And probably if the drum itself is patent and you replicate the people's original drum from Persia, whoever invented that, it could cause some serious problem because somebody could challenge Trinidad and Tobago on that. And it will happen if something like that, if we try to claim that drum, somebody somewhere will always challenge us. So, but compared to the Steelpan, who's going to challenge that? I mean, I remember some years ago people talking about the pan and people grabbing the pan, and the government must do something before they think we will lose the pan, because they're saying Japan was producing pan and selling and being paid and this and all that. And all that was under the Manning administration when people was crying out to do something about the pan and something had been done. And then leaving them, I mean, I remember the Trinity Cross. I was one of them who would have been against moving a Trinity Cross because I was looking at it at this way, that, that marriage always causing confusion, it's always controversial, and everything them only seen is race. But when I listened to the ruling from the case, I can understand that, and I can understand the removal of the Trinity Cross as the highest order because of certain people's belief, and it's not of their belief. But we didn't see anybody and getting on like how people get on against the Steelpan, putting on the thing there. Even the Catholic community, they would have vented their reasons why the Trinity Cross should stay, but they never went down the road of dragging people's religion and people's personal thing into the dispute that, as we see in here now, was happening, and it mainly coming from the opposition side. So I'm glad about that. That we don't ignore them, and we must bring forward. Let's don't go down the road of the gutter thing and make nasty remarks about them over it. But stick to the fact that the pan is our own, and the 3 ships represent genocide, rape, and all these other things. But no matter how you look at it, turn it upside down and you look at it, that is what is the symbol of that. And I also said that the first people, we really don't respect them. And they were here long before us, long before Christopher. So, let's respect the people and them, and let's do something about that. We don't need that. We have a bunch of ships that represent criminals as our national take them on our day. Come on, we need to do something better. We had to wake up. This we mustn't be seeing everything with race and politics and all those things. It's disgusting. And I had to agree with the young girl from St. Lucia who really gave us a good reflection of how really we as a people how we see things, and how we take advantage of things, and how we are not supportive for the country itself. I wouldn't say we too much, because there's one side that says the hell with country, party first. But the others, I think. But Dominic, thanks again for, educating us.
Yes.
You said a lot this morning, and a lot to reflect. I had to go back through this again later on in the day and look at certain things that you said. So when people ask me questions, or I can further educate myself. So when I'm being asked questions about Steelpan and those other things, and what has been happening, I can speak on it, because you're really just going to end up. Not just I could read the same thing that you read, but not understand it as how you understand it. You have just make it simpler for me to understand. So now when I have to explain myself to somebody, if I'm in a conversation, I'll be better able to get the message across. And I had to thank you for that. Thank you very much, Dominic.
Thank you, sir. Right. So before I sign off, for all the people who say in the ships, and the ships represent our history, and we need to preserve it. All of you hypocrites who didn't want the Trinity Cross because it's associated with Christians, I want you to get a picture of the coat of arms and zoom in, and you will see on the sails for the 3 ships, you see a big red cross on each of them, right? Big red cross. So all who didn't want the Trinity Cross, but now all they want, keep the ships. That is part of our history, right? Okay. We supported the 3 ships with the red cross on each of the sails, but we didn't want the Trinity Cross. The Trinity Cross had to go, and right, and it's so this dotish argument about that if it is we change the Trinity Cross now, all the other documents that people have with the old Trinity Cross, that somehow not Trinity Cross, sorry, the coat of arms, that is going to nullify that, and you have to go and change and your marriage certificate and all of that, and it's foolishness. Some people don't even know where their marriage certificate is, but complaining, we have to go back and get the government tell you how to do that. Some of them, they get a marriage certificate and then they put it somewhere in the grip under the bed, and the next time they see it, probably when they get a divorce or something like that, or some of them, they don't see it again, but they complaining. So the people who have the Trinity Cross, when they change the national award to the Order of Trinidad and Tobago, did that mean that the Trinity Cross, that the people who were the recipients of the Trinity Cross, they had to give it back and come and get an Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Did the fact that the national award change nullify the fact that these folks had gotten a national award? But they ain't thinking, But that's it. I mean, logic, boy. Oh, gosh, boy. Anyway, folks, I don't know. But we had to continue this discussion, right? I check on I haven't seen Mr. Robertson do a doubles and coffee as yet, which is uncommon for him. But I'm almost certain he's not going to speak on this issue. You might see him disappear for a couple of days and hope that it goes away, or that something else will happen as a distraction. But I encourage you, please do not allow yourselves to be distracted. If possible, you want to visit his Facebook page, Douglas Politics, do so and engage him. Keep it respectful and engage him and ask him. So what are your thoughts on this? Any comments? Are we going to get a live on this? And you're going to speak? And of course, if he actually, when he sees already the comments and the requests, if he does speak of it, the usual thing he say, his name was never mentioned in the audit report. But you cannot tell me, as the article I just read said, the permanent secretary, it was based on the recommendation of the permanent secretary, that Sport TT issued this contract to Mr. Adolphus Daniel. Mr. Adolphus Daniel was taken to the Minister of Finance by Anil Roberts. Same Anil Roberts whose father's company or law firm would have registered Mr. Adolphus Daniel's business. Right? So for Mr. Roberts to pretend that he didn't know that all of that is absolute rubbish and garbage. And based on that article, he needs to tell the country what was his relationship to Mr. Adolphus Daniel prior to live sport. What was his relationship to Adolphus Daniel when he took Mr. Daniel to the Minister of Finance? He needs to tell us whether or not there were any other proposals ever submitted to him during his tenure as Minister of Sport in which he would have taken a personal interest. So is whether that was a normal practice to be taken persons who want to engage the government in whatever form or manner to a minister. But you know what's the hypocrisy in it? When the Prime Minister and Stuart Young, right, when they traveled abroad and they met with the heads of the energy company and so to speak to them and to talk to them about Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector, to negotiate with respect to the gas pricing and all of these things, or to set things in motion to allow for that. Because at the end of the day, it's the technocrats who would do the final negotiations and all of that. But you have Professor Misinformation and Captain Clueless on that radio station will tell you that is corruption. The minister not supposed to get involved in that. Or the minister. But it wasn't corruption for Anil Roberts to take Adolphus Daniel to the Minister of Finance, setting up the play for $34 million to be paid. At the time when he took him, it wasn't 34 yet, right? So they went to try and convince the Minister of Finance to show him, to tell him about this program. And so I want to ask Anil, why he didn't take him to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa? Why he didn't take Mr. Adolphus Daniel to the Minister of Education, Tim Gopi Singh? Why you took him to the Minister of Finance of all people? Because you figure he's the man, it's millions we're talking about, and he's the man at the pay, right? That's the only minister who said you brought him to him. Did you ever challenge that? Did you call out Larry Hawaii as a liar and say that didn't happen? No, you didn't. And then a couple months after that meeting, all of a sudden, it went from 12 million to 34 million. No tender, sole select. So let the ministry just pick a man, give him this money. And all who know about procurement now, and the defenders of proper procurement and how this government is so corrupt, asking all you, give me to the UNC supporters who listen. Could you tell us one instance where any minister in this administration over the last 9 years take any contractor, potential contractor, or bidder for a contract to another minister to explain something, and then you see the contractor get the contract a few months later? But they love to talk. Rowley said the rich must get richer, and the PNM only about getting the 1% richer, and the friends and family richer. But it wasn't Keith Rowley that gave 34 million to Adolphus Daniel, and Mr. Daniel said he's not giving it back. And it wasn't Keith Rowley that gave $11.625 million to the man that he wanted to become his Minister of Finance. So when they come at you with this dotage talk about Rowley said the rich must get richer and the PNM is only about making the rich richer, right? It wasn't Rowley that gave a man 4 acres of land in Shagarama, so $1 a year for 30 years, for him to build a car park and then to lease the car park to the CDA for $900,000 a month for 30 years. It wasn't Keith Rowley that did that. All right? So when they come with that choppy talk about the PNM want to make the rich richer, remind them of these instances. And then they want to come and to the young lady who put that choppiness in the comment about the 26,000 for nothing, and that was paid for nothing. Go and do some research on a company called Tiger Capital, right? Tiger Capital, company that was given over $1 million, TT, 1.5 million or so by the former Attorney General under that administration. And when the media went to try and find the office of this Tiger Capital, you know what they found? An empty lot of land with some gravel at the official address of this company. So when you want to ask for the 26,000 US back, ask for the 1.5 million tuna and the 1.7 million that they paid for a barge when they had the bunking issue with the diesel that was paid into an account in Ellerslie Plaza in Scotiabank for a barge that we didn't get. Ask for that tuna and add to the list the 10 million US that went missing from the bank account of NEC. The 10 million US that went to Guyana to pay for hot dog and ketchup, right? That went missing from the bank account of NEC, the FCB bank account of NEC. And at the same time, when that happened, the man who was the chairman of NEC and who was the CEO of First Citizens was one and the same. And how did they deal with that? They gave him 11.625 million and made him the Minister of Finance. Should have had something to say it's not a real place. Is that a question that? Folks, thank you all so much. We will chat again Sunday, God's willing. Yes, 11 o'clock. on Sunday. Plenty things to talk about, but we had to deal with Ralph Maraj, right? I put up that article long enough. On Sunday, you deal with that and other things. So, and also too, if you have the time, please visit the Facebook page. You all could visit the Debunking UNC Lies with Facts page on Facebook. We posted a video yesterday that from Kelvin Morris, minority leader in the THA, a video of the construction of the Tobago Airport Terminal. If you haven't seen that video, you could go on his Facebook page as well, Kelvin Morris, and see the video he posted yesterday of the progress. I mean, trust me, I jealous. I wish we could switch and put Piarco in Tobago, and that what they're building in Tobago, they put it in Piarco. So go and take a look at it and see the progress that this administration is making. And you know what? It had the bubble that happened under the Pandey administration with respect to the Piarco Airport. You know Ish, you know Steve, and the rest of them, right? None of them. And it's progressing well. And it's supposed to be finished by the end of the year. Come January, let me see what the TPP had to say about that. Morning to JV Harper. So please, take a peep. And if you could go on Foster Cummins' page, go and check it out and see what took place yesterday at Napa. And all the young faces, the young people who came there eager and enthusiastic to become business owners, not employees. They're not interested in 55,000 jobs. They're interested in becoming business owners. They get in the money, the technical support, and if they need further collateral, they could get that too. Who offering that? Not Kamla. Kamla offering jobs. Keith Rowley is offering grants, training to become your own business owner and to write your own paycheck. So while Kamla is offering our young people the opportunity for somebody else to tell them what they're worth on a monthly basis, Keith Rowley is saying you determine what you are worth. The amount of effort you put in, the more you put in, and the more you take advantage of what the government has to offer, is the better for you. Okay? So I will leave it there. Thank you all so much. We will chat again on Sunday morning. God's willing.